Hello, I'm Brian. The claim I'm responding to is that social networking websites create a substantial harm to their users. My opponent's secondary claims are: 1, social networking sites facilitate cyberbullying; 2, that social networking sites are a threat to privacy; and that 3, these websites are also a threat to safety. To the first secondary claim, that social networking sites facilitate cyberbullying, the advocate gives us a statistic of a sample of 4,441 10 to 18-year-olds in February of 2010. It says that 17% of kids in southern states had been cyberbullied 1 or more times in the past month. But this claim does not give an accurate reading on a large scale of how many people are cyberbullying, making the survey biased. It is selective to only 7 southern states rather than all 50. It is also possible that these incidences did not happen on a social networking website. The survey fails to state on what websites these cyberbullying incidents took place. Next, the advocate tells us the story of Megan Meyer, who tragically committed suicide after a breakup with an online relationship. Megan developed a relationship with a person online who she thought was a boy, who was actually the mother of one of Megan's ex-friends. No evidence was shown on how the bullying directly contributed to the suicide of Megan Meyer, and no evidence was to where on what social networking site the cyberbullying took place during the speech. There is some background of Megan Meyer that's left out in the speech. According to abcnews.com, the advocate leaves out that Megan had a history of depression and low self-esteem. Megan was also 13 years old, and the minimum age requirement for MySpace is 14 years old. So some could say that she should not have even been allowed on the website to begin with. My counterclaim to this is that social networking sites are to be handled with caution and awareness. These sites were not created and intended for cyberbullying, so if you do participate in these websites, you must protect yourself from online predators by not talking to strangers. The advocate's secondary claim is that social networking sites are a threat to privacy. The advocate states that befriending unknown users can lead to an identity theft, and that once these users are your friends, they see everything on your profile. However, the advocate does not give a statistic on how many people on social networking sites are adding users that they don't know. The advocate has jumped to the conclusion that all people using social networking sites are befriending users that they don't know. Another survey is using the argument that says, as of June 2009, a third of social networkers have at least 3 pieces of information that lead to identity theft. But what we are not given is a correlation to how these 3 pieces of information leads to identity theft. Another thing left out of the survey is that it was taken in the United Kingdom and only surveyed the British. So this culture difference between us and them makes the argument a little less acceptable. My counterclaim to this is that privacy settings on social networking sites have sufficient means in protecting your identity. According to Facebook.com, privacy settings include options to let only your friends see information about you, making your profile private. And furthermore, you can keep information such as birthdays, wall posts, location, status, location of school, and employment from specific friends or from all of your friends. These privacy settings are here to protect your identity from people you don't want them to see. The third secondary claim is that these social websites are a threat to safety. The advocate starts his argument by saying that in the past 2 years, MySpace has removed over 90,000 sex offenders, but does not give the source or citation of the survey, making the statement not acceptable. Even if we do take this information as credible, this is 90,000 sex offenders that have been removed, that are no longer on the website, furthering the safety of the website. The advocate then gives an example of Dateline NBC's To Catch a Predator, which caught 38 men, but does not say where, how, or why they were caught, and if any social networking site had anything to do with the show. This evidence is not relevant to the claim without additional information included to the study. The closing statements are all based on a hypothetical scenario. He states that when adding friends, the sole intent of these friends could be scamming, and that these people make fake pages in order to gain money, information, and get out viruses. The statement relies too heavily on the premise that people are adding friends who they don't know, and does not list any specific instances where social networking sites have helped people scamming to gain money, information, or to hand out viruses. My counterclaim to this is that participating in social networking websites is a voluntary act, and the risks involved are known to the public, and privacy limitations can help protect safety. Thank you.
Gesundheit. All right, Brian, this is a lot like some of the other speeches we've heard. We've got a lot of good presses and a lot of interesting issues that you bring up. Most of them are the kinds of things that you could say off of the top of your head. You've got good criticism of some of the points that the advocate is making, but I think you need to develop a little bit more content of the argument on your own. The closest that you come to doing something like that is some additional information about the one girl who committed suicide. And I'm not sure that that's the best argument on which to be doing that. I think I like the argument that you made on the third point where you're talking about, the 90,000 predators who were removed. Well, that seems to suggest that in fact that there is some activity here that is protecting people because they were in fact removed. And so it's an interesting turn on the data, but of course it's the advocate's data. You haven't generated any additional information on your own. Your argument largely is premised on the notion that people don't know about any of the risks that might exist out there, and because the advocate hasn't overwhelmingly proved the existence of those risks, that we don't really need to think that it exists, which flies in the face, I think, most people's experience and knowledge of the subject. So even though you've got okay presses, I think the presses in the context of the world don't really help you that much. It makes it sound like you're poo-pooing something that is potentially important because they didn't give you a specific name, or that there's a privacy setting that can fix this problem. And I think that from a convincing point of view, it's not very powerful, and so I think you could maybe have some stronger argument. You ask the right questions and you put in appropriate presses in this situation, but without additional information on context, I'm not sure that it's really a substantial argument. All right, thank you.